on holding your hand. Feel like a tourist in my own homeland. In my own homeland. Enjoying the bright, the warm sunlight. Oh my God, what a beautiful sight. In my own homeland. This place is so nice, wanna do everything twice. Yes, I feel as if I'm in a paradise. No matter the season, you've got every reason. This place is another little heaven.
Greetings, kings and queens. Welcome to another Real Stuff podcast. Today is Tuesday, and when it's Tuesday, we have Indigenous Outlook. And today on Indigenous Outlook, our special guest is none other than Mr. Sam Altman, all the way from down under Australia today. And as Sam said, this time of the morning, it's a party, so we're going to be partying. But for those of you in the United States, let me tell you that there's an election going on somewhere in the United States of America. I know there's a commission election going on in South Beach, Miami, in Florida. But it could be even a municipal election. It could be a parents' teacher meeting the election. So sit and stay. Don't go nowhere. I'll be right back with Flavius, Errol, Courtney, Max Juanetta, and Francine, and of course our special guest Sam. Yes, indeed. Let me say top of the morning, gentlemen. Top of the morning. And top of the morning because it's very early for Sam this morning. So I'm going to start with you, Errol, this morning. What's happening in your neck of the woods?
Top of the morning, Sam, your special guest, Courtney and Flavius, and yourself, Sir Franco, and your other hosts who are not on camera at this time. Well, for the first time, I'm going to begin by noting the weather, not to follow Flavius and Courtney, but it has been raining. And in fact, I thought I would have an issue hearing you or you hearing me, but it's kind of clear up now, but it's overcast. With respect to the news, the national news, I'd like to summarize that, there's an ongoing trial for one of the alleged gangs in Jamaica. I won't call the name, but there is a little money worries. You know the song that says, everywhere goes money worries?
Yeah.
There is pending money worries because the lawyers, the legal aid people are providing the legal counsel for the alleged gang members. And one of them sounded out that the cap for senior lawyers is $1.2 million, and for junior lawyers it's $800,000. And they are concerned that it could be dragged on and they might not be paid. So money worries. There's a lot of big money behind this trial, and it seems to be heading to be compounded for lawyers' attorneys' fee. The next thing is that an American, one of your American, I know you're a Jamaican, but I'm just throwing it at you. One of your American citizens, along with a Jamaican woman, have been convicted and for arranging marriages. So that has been in the news, and we'll hear more about it. Some of them, one or two, have been sentenced already, and another one is to be sentenced. So Jamaica and the US are still collaborating in arranging marriages, and it is ongoing. The other thing is that you may know, this is in passing, that the great Mark Zuckerberg apologized for yesterday's hours of, I don't know if Sam had it in Australia, most likely.
Yes, it was there. Yep.
Yes. Yeah, he has apologized. I'm not defending him. He can manage on his own. He doesn't need me, but I'm just putting it in as we are looking at news. And just two last items. With respect to our COVID registration, it was announced this morning that the logging of the COVID vaccination record is way behind in terms of getting it in the soft space. And that is important because to get the digital record going, passport as they would call it, has to be digitized. And so that is way behind time because of lack of staff. Finally, I should have said this last week. I don't know if we mentioned it, but the sexual harassment bill has been passed in the upper house after many changes and counter arguments. So that means that the men who, and women too, but mostly men, the men who like to slap women on their buttocks and like to say sexually explicit things to women at the workplace. And even if you admire too much, you could be in trouble. I know there was a big discussion when it was being discussed that men can't get to admire women again, but it is now passed and to be ratified by the lower house and to be made into law. So those of you who are coming down here when COVID is free, you can't just tell a woman anything. And it goes for men as well. It's a gender neutral bill. So women have to be careful too, because they are also on the rampage in harassing men. I thank you very much. And thanks.
All right. And let me continue with the Jamaica for Flavius. What's happening in your neck of the woods?
Good morning.
Morning, Sir Flavius.
Our listeners and viewers, let's say the rain has finally caught up with us from yesterday afternoon, and it's continuous, going on right now. Not very, very heavy, but it's there, and outside it's dark. It's like nighttime. So we are getting our level of the rain now. Something that Errol said about, the men are saying they can't get to admire women again. But apart from the bill, COVID have done us a great harm in that respect, I must say. Because wearing of the mask, the women beauty comes a lot, in their mouth, and the mask take it away from you. So, that is something that COVID is not, does not work well for us.
All right then, Cody.
Less temptation, maybe. Less temptation.
Let me acknowledge.
You should never be tempted, but you should be enjoying the beauty of the lady.
Right.
You don't have to be tempted.
All right then. Let me acknowledge our female co-host Francine. Top of the morning, Francine. Welcome.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning.
Morning, Francine.
I am listening in and I'm wondering what's happening in Fehono neck of the woods, because there's a bag of things I hear happening over there. Mm-hmm. Let me say good morning to Mr. Sam and the rest of the podcast team. Good morning. Now, Flavius, you mentioned earlier about covering of the mouth, because that's where the beauty is. When you have my traits, my dear, beauty is all over. So whether the mask or not, I am beautiful from head to toe, my dear. So when I'm wearing a mask,
that we know.
Yes,
that we know.
But the rain is it's heavily falling, pouring down right over here from my side, and the sky, it looks like night. That's how dark it is. It's not, and the funny thing about it, it's not falling with a lot of breeze, because usually the breeze would be blowing and you'd see things happening. No, it's just pouring down. I'm not seeing any flooding at this time. Hopefully there won't be. But so far, so good. Last night was a quiet night. Not much happening at work last night. Thank God. So hopefully it will remain like that for today. I'm not seeing anything. Sorry, I'm getting a feedback just now. Sorry?
Yeah, it's been rectified.
Okay, right. So with that being said, Michibu is in the building, over and out.
Are you coming on camera even for a short time?
I don't think I can come on camera, based on my situation at this point.
Well, at least we have your voice.
I'm gonna try and work on something. Let me see if I can pop in before the show ends, right?
At least we have your
let
voice.
me know when you're coming on, because we need to have you on for a few minutes.
At least a BL or so.
All right, so let me see. Because if I'm going to come on, I have to be in my mask and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, man.
but that not gonna show me. That not gonna show anything. So,
hey, I'm just glad to have your voice.
And I see some peeping through the camera like him, waiting to see who is talking behind the scenes. So I don't know yet. Let me see what's happening. Courtney, good morning.
Morning, Mitchell. Morning.
morning. All right. Back to you, friend.
Thank you. Enough energy that this morning, so we know enough things are going on in a Francine life. Courtney, what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Top of the morning to the crew, Flavius, Franco, Errol, and top of the morning to our special guest Sam, and to our listeners and viewers. In my neck of the woods, it's just 61 degrees and cloudy, looking dark outside. But the forecast is just 20% rain for today. And we know that the big news yesterday was, the shutdown of Facebook and WhatsApp, because yesterday I was desperately trying to make a WhatsApp call and, it wasn't going through. And I'm wondering what was happening until I heard it on the news, So take it away, Franco. That's my little bit for right now.
3 billion people, who depend.
But Franco, I have to add this,
Yeah.
Yesterday when I never, because I didn't realize that the WhatsApp was down. I didn't know it was a worldwide thing. So I was there wondering, was it an internet issue for me? I restart the box.
People did.
I restart the phone and uninstall. I said, but no, something ain't right. It was when I got to work, I realized that everybody was experiencing the same problem. And it was the work. Listen to me. Let me tell you something, this just proves how connected we are, how hooked we are, how addicted we are to social media. Because a lot of persons, it's like they can't focus because of the whole removal of, but we have to appreciate, what we have, because you see, if the WhatsApp is out of bound, guess what will happen? We'd have to be paying more to get things done, like to make a call. Lots of money. Yes.
Well, let
we'd
me
have
tell
to be paying for the internet calls, the international calls, and then this beautiful Zoom link. If this moving on. I mean, there's no more opportunity to see me, Well,
let me tell you all of you this. Mark Zuckerberg lost billions of dollars yesterday. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
I know. I know.
Because remember, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp were down.
And WhatsApp.
So him lost billions. So remember me telling him I come back for it.
Yeah, man, he's going to get it back. As a matter of fact, I think him start collecting already.
He's going to charge you guys because him stock went down. His stock dropped $7 billion in him stock.
Yeah, but it can go back up very quickly.
Yes, he's going to make it back out the advertisement and him going to charge some here, But anyway, in my neck of the woods, I'm dealing with the Caribbean, and it's something that was said yesterday by the Prime Minister of Barbados, and she said our Caribbean community will work assiduously to ensure the policy initiatives and legislative frameworks we need to put into place. To those who want to stand against that march to progress, we simply say time and good idea will prevail. So that's what's happening in the Caribbean neck of the woods. So, without any further ado, I'm just going to introduce Sam. But before I introduce Sam, I'm going to ask Allison to do that honor for us. And then Sam, as soon as Allison is done, then you can come in. All right?
Sure.
Go ahead, Allison.
Sam Altman is an Australian. I am Warame, from the mid-north coast of NSW. I respectfully acknowledge the Woy Wurrung and Boon Wurrung language groups, on whose unceded ancestral and traditional lands I live, teach and write when in Australia. I respectfully acknowledge the Wurundjeri peoples of the Lenape tribe from the Algonquian language group, on whose ancestral lands I live and work while in the USA. Today, the Real Stuff podcast, welcome Sam Altman, Australia. I respectfully acknowledge...
Thank you, Sam. Welcome.
Thank you. Look, thank you, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. And Vicky, of course, was our facilitator. So I'm listening to your news sharing, and I feel that I am going to be a bit of a downer. I'm sorry to say I'm going to talk about some Indigenous things from Australia. But by the way, I am personally not an Indigenous person, but I've spent many years working with many Indigenous people and teaching and learning. But I'm going to talk about COP26, which is the big meeting in Glasgow early in November. And I talk about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Now, these are quite grim things to talk about. And I just want to, I feel a bit embarrassed to, we have good fun and good interactions, but the message I'm going to be presenting is like I said, it's grim, and so I just want to warn people. And but maybe I should start with a little bit about myself. I am the only son of two Holocaust survivors from Europe, from Poland. And I think that has been an important part of my life and ideas. I have two grown children and live a very comfortable life as what we call boomer in Australia, and I think in rich countries. So I want to just check my privilege as coming to you in the Caribbean. So I also wanted to know, I mean, people talked about the weather. I wonder, what do you make of climate change? Can I just get a quick response from at least the people I can see? I understand there's more people listening.
Yeah, all the weather analysis. Yeah. I think that question posed for all, come on. Come up with the answer.
We have serious problems in the Caribbean.
Yeah, so I hear, and they're only going to get worse. That's what I mean. I've got a grim message for you, and the COP26, the big meeting in Glasgow, is supposed to help fix things. But it's very unlikely that it'll be able to do the things that it needs to do, because too many rich people. You mentioned Zuckerberg. Well, he's one example, but there's maybe there's a couple of hundred, maybe 1,000 rich, mainly Americans and Europeans, and a few Chinese who are doing okay, and I'm afraid the rest of the world is going to be in big trouble. So that's the sort of story I'm going to talk about. So I hope people are able to hang around, and so maybe I should start. There's two things at COP26, but there's also the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. This is a major report from thousands of scientists, and it's this very strange situation where the science has been very strong for a very long time about how bad things are going to become, and how they're already happening in many parts of the world, and they've also worked out what needs to be done to to make them not so bad, but nothing is happening. In fact, it's getting worse and worse. A very sober statistic is the greenhouse gas emissions, which is mainly carbon dioxide, needs to go down by 45% by 2030, which is only less than 10 years away. But the prediction is it'll go up by 16%, meaning there is no way that the world will change, and I'm talking about the rich world here mainly, will change its ways and by the time it needs to. And if it doesn't happen by 2030, then the global warming will just continue. It's already one degree average. In some parts of the world, it's higher than that. In Australia, it's higher than that. It's about 1.8 in Australia. Australia is very prone to this global warming. We should call it global heating. It's nothing warm about it. It's very dangerous and becoming more dangerous. And anyway, the scientists have been very clear what's happening and what needs to be done, but very little is being done to fix it. The things that are going wrong, the heating is built in. That's one of the reasons why it's hard to get people to think about this. Is it's rapid. It's rapid for the time on Earth, the geological time. It's very rapid, but for human time, it's people find it gets a bit warmer, it gets a bit wetter. There are very, I'm talking about the experience in Australia. In Australia, there have been some major climate disasters. There was a huge fires, biggest fires ever in Australia about a year ago, and all made worse because of the climate change. But the response has been very, very poor. And of course, like I said, I've got 2 adult children, and I worry about them. I worry about any grandchildren. By the time my children are my age, the way the world goes, it'll be much hotter and everything will be much worse. And so their future is no future, or let's say a very bad future. And this is true in Australia. We're a rich country, but it's even more true in other poor parts of the world. So that's introduction, and then I was going to talk a bit more detail about what this means, and like I tried to say at the beginning, there is no happy ending. And I'm feeling like a very bad storyteller with no happy ending, but I think it's the sort of reality of the situation we're in. Can I ask another question? Jamaica and other countries in the Caribbean will be represented in Glasgow. Are people aware of that? Has that makes the news in your countries?
Jamaica. Has anybody heard about that? That Jamaica will be represented
and the other countries in the Caribbean should be there. Sorry?
For the climate change meeting? That's the one coming up?
In Glasgow, yeah.
I have no idea if they're going to have individual representative or it's going to be like a regional, like you say, North America, you would have maybe the USA and Canada as a representative. Well,
it's very big. They expect 30,000 people to be there in Glasgow, and it's another weird thing. Most of those people are going to fly to Glasgow, and the amount of fuel used to bring those people there to talk about climate change is going to make a big increase in the climate. It's weird. It's a sick joke, but it's not very funny. Anyway, I'm sure those people are very keen to be there. I know, for example, there is Ireland. There's one of the groupings is island countries, and because island countries have got their own special issues to do with climate change, and which to do with, of course, with hurricanes and cyclones and sea level rise, and these are special effects happens to our Pacific neighbours here in near Australia. We've got some small island countries that are going to be flooded, and they already are flooded. They're low lying. They're already low lying, and the sea level is rising. And even before the sea level rises, it's the storms are getting much worse, and the storm surges. And I understand that's also happening in the Caribbean. I know there's very big hurricanes in the Caribbean. We in the media we hear about it when it hits the US, but I know that many Caribbean countries and islands are affected by those hurricanes.
Hey Sam, you mentioned, if I may ask a question, you mentioned that by 2030, right? We should have a reduction in what do you call it?
Greenhouse gas. Greenhouse gases.
It should be
mainly carbon
it
dioxide.
should be in the 40s, like 45% or low.
Should be, yeah.
But you said it's going to be up 16% more.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's just a sign of how poor. The scientists have been warning this for 30, 40 years. It's not new. All this information has been around for a very long time, and it's been ignored. It's been denied. It's been what can you say? It's this a major human failing. When I say human, it isn't all humans. The powerful people, the 1%, have failed to do anything. And, of course, it is the richer people in the richer countries. It's not just rich countries. It's the rich people of rich countries that are a main reason for this greenhouse gas, yeah.
So, but the world 1%, they are making their money from those sort of things, right? So to them, it's nothing. But if you think about it, the whole they won't be able to escape the damage. They'll be able to protect themselves a little bit. They'll be able to move. I know people are already moving to New Zealand. Rich people are going to New Zealand, and they're talking about going even to Antarctica. I kid you not, because in 20, 30 years, even Antarctica will be warmer than it is now. Yeah.
And be able to be lived in. And some people think, that's where I'm going to make my really big money. I'll buy up real estate in Antarctica. It's sickening, but it's the way some people respond.
So how can what is scientists doing to what is scientists doing to bring the awareness more to these 1% throughout the world? The 1% that control the wealth in the world.
It's very complicated. It's who owns the scientists? The scientists are not as there are some very good scientists. There are some scientists who have been doing everything they can to warn the world, and there've been lots of people doing this. But in terms of science, is also controlled by rich companies, and so they buy scientists, and for many years they've said, no, global warming is not real, and if it's real, it's not caused by humans. So there've been all this pretend fights about this, and now it's very hard to ignore. If you recall, in the northern summer, There were huge floods in Germany. There's giant fires in North America. Those climate disasters, there are many climate disasters in Africa and in Asia, but those ones that happen to be in the rich countries of Europe and North America have suddenly people realised that most people will not be able to hide from this fact. Some people will be able to, it'll hit them late, they'll be able to protect themselves for a while, but in the end, it's the whole planet that is going to be affected badly.
So that means we'll be getting more earthquake, more hurricanes with more power.
Well, even earthquake. People don't understand. One of the big climate effects is the ice melting, right? Mm-hmm. Huge amounts of ice is melting. And the two big ice areas of the world, there are many, but the biggest ones are in Greenland and in Antarctica. They're melting. And as the ice melts, I'm talking billions of tons of ice are melting. They are the weight on those parts of the Earth is diminishing, and so the Earth is plastic. I know it's hard to believe this, but as the ice melts, it bounces back, and that is causing more and more earthquakes because even though it's happening in the Arctic and the Antarctic, that affects the whole Earth. So even earthquakes are affected by climate change. In this case, the ice melting.
May God help us all.
Exactly. Yeah. I am not a religious person at all, but I think things are, like I say, so grim, and I will be long dead when some of these happen. Like I say, I worry about young people, my children, my grandchildren. In fact, my children have more or less decided not to have children. I don't know.
Whoa!
It's weird, and I know it's partly to do with being in a rich country. But the idea is that they feel that they cannot bring children into the world because by the time those children are adults, these really bad effects are going to be much more common and more extreme. And so they feel, in terms of my children, they're in their 20s, the late 20s, and so they haven't decided not to have children yet, but it's not simple for them to. They're quite well off economically. They could easily have children. It's because of, I'm sure that having a father like me who's been telling them about all this grim situation for years, then maybe I've talked them out of it, and I feel very sad about that whole. The whole thing of what it means to be a human is very badly affected.
Sam. This is Courtney. I want to ask a question, and but I'm going to make a little statement first. It's a known fact that deforestation is one of the main cause of climate change. What should be done to protect forest lands?
Look, you're absolutely right. The forests, trees and all plants, they have carbon dioxide. They keep it in the wood. Like a tree might last 100 or even 200 years. Well, that carbon in that tree is there for not in the atmosphere and therefore not contributing to the global the greenhouse effect. The global warming, and the big forests are very good at sequestering carbon, but things have got so bad. The Amazon, right? The Amazon, in your hemisphere of the Caribbean, the Amazon is probably the biggest forest on Earth. Used to be called the lungs of the Earth. Well, now, because of the deforestation there, it's actually losing carbon instead of sucking up carbon, which is what a big forest area should do. It is losing carbon, and the big fires that happen in the Amazon, like they happen in Australian forests too, are causing even more carbon dioxide. So that's another one of the very grim things is if they'd have listened to the scientists 30 years ago, and then reforestation could have made a big difference. But nowadays, it seems as though it's not going to have that effect because it's too far gone. There's too much carbon in the atmosphere now. The heating, even though like I said, the human scale of the heating is in one lifetime it can get warmer, but the difference is huge over that lifetime, and so even deforestation is not as effective as it might have been.
Flavor. So just 1 minute. I just want to ask a follow-up question on that because, so to speak a little bit of how this deforestation will affect agriculture and food sustainability in the future.
Well, look, I've talked totally globally, and I think it's really important to think locally, right? So if you live near a forest, or if you and the community decide to put a lot of work in and plant trees, then that will make a difference for you locally. It won't make a difference for global, because there's so many other parts of the world where trees are being cut down, so the sum total for the globe will still be bad, but in a locality, living near a forest is a plus, right? So it is a good idea to have those have forests. But remember, the whole world is getting warmer, and so what we found in Australia with the huge fires, the mega fires of a year ago, was that all different parts, there are different types of forests, and some parts had never had fire ever. Never for thousands of years, right? And even those forests, these are rainforests, these are very wet places, but even those forests burnt for the first time. And it just goes to show that the global temperature is overriding some of those local things that used to protect those forests, and it's just a sign of how it's called runaway climate change, because it's not a simple effect. It's not one thing; it's many things, and they affect each other. There are things called tipping points, we are right now. It looks as though we're very close to these tipping points, and scientists have been warning about this for years, and that's one of the great tragedies. So just to answer you, Courtney, yes, grow things as much as possible. It's really important, and it will have a local effect. But overall, everyone in the whole world has to do this to make a difference, and it's just not happening. In fact, the opposite is happening.
Well, I know that tree planting campaign, I think it's about 30,000 trees in the next 3 years. So that has just been advertised. The seedlings and plants are available. People just need to pick them up and start planting.
Yeah, I think it's important to do anything one can, I've given a grim picture, and I can give you even more statistics about how grim that picture is, but I still think it's important to do what you can. First of all, tree planting, you can do it as a community, and so working together on something like this is really important, because communities can protect each other much better than individuals can, and so the trees themselves are good, but the process of planting trees is also good.
It is often said when we have these hurricanes and storms that we do the least to bring on these things, but we get the bad results at all times.
Look, that's very true. That global warming, it is the rich people of the rich countries and of course there are some rich people in poor countries, but it's the rich, it's the 1%, and it's so. The other thing that climate change is, it's about the climate, it's about extinction. Many species are going extinct, but it's also about social inequality. All the inequality that was there in the past is only getting worse and worse. That's why I mentioned of Zuckerberg. He's a good example. He's a multi-billionaire, right? I think I read just recently that I think there were maybe 10 billionaires a year ago. 1 year ago, there were 10 billionaires, and now, 1 year later, there's 100 billionaires. Right, and COVID had a bit to do with that, but it's the huge inequality, the social inequality is being made worse, and that is also an effect of climate change, and it causes climate change, and it is effect of climate change. So they should be all shot, if you ask me, but I don't think it's going to happen. And look, those rich people, not only are they moving to places like New Zealand and thinking about Antarctica, I kid you not, but they're also got their private armies as well, and some of them are wondering, how can I keep my private army to make sure that they protect me and not attack me. And I mean, these sound like jokes, but they're not jokes. This is how some people think.
My question, Sam, is that what can or what should we, in an area like the Caribbean, what can or should we do to, quote unquote, save ourselves?
Yeah, look, I was trying to say that before. It's community, right? When I first was talking with Vicky about some of the things here, I learned for my first time about the Maroons in Jamaica. Right? That community, to me, I mean, I have no idea what the situation is now today, but that history of slave rebellion that fought the British and managed to be free and stay free, that is a strong community and has a strong history. So we need to look to, all of us need to look at our communities and our cultural strengths, because it's only when we look after each other can things be done. My one of the things that I say, and it's not popular, is that these like that grim story I've been telling you about how climate change will not be able to be fixed. it's baked in. The best thing that could possibly happen is it won't be as terrible as, at the moment. We by the end of this century, we'll be not 1 degree warmer, will be 3 degrees warmer, and that'll make, I'm afraid, it'll make the tropics, like the Caribbean, most of the tropics very hard to live in. There'll be 40 or 50 days over 40 degrees centigrade, and it'll be very warm at night as well as during the day. So what we can expect as to prepare for collapse. Collapse is a hard concept, and I know it's we're talking about the food chains and financial chains, etc., that are already collapsing. And I don't know if you've noticed it in the Caribbean, but transport is getting more and more expensive. Food is getting more expensive, and this is to do with COVID. It's not directly to do with the climate yet, but it's showing signs of. I know it's happening in Australia, and so already the supply chains are stressed, and some of them are breaking down. Well, this in the climate stressed world, it'll only be worse, and so we build community and prepare for collapse. Prepare. I mean, it'll be different in different parts of the world. And I can't predict how what will happen. I know it's already happening in some parts of the world. People are aware of the Syrian war, the Middle East, and the last 10 or 15 years. That Syrian war was due to climate change. There was a big drought in Syria and the countries around Syria, the Middle East. Big drought, and a lot of people that used to be able to grow food in the country could no longer grow food, so they moved to the city. That move into the city caused a lot of civil unrest and caused the civil war in Syria, caused 10 million migrants to leave Syria. Some went to Europe, a lot in Turkey, etc. So that is an example of a climate-affected civil unrest, which is, I'm afraid, is going to be the future. Well, in some places, it's already the present, and so that's what I mean by sort of collapse, and one needs to. All one can think about is just how to build community and just start aware of one's cultural strengths, one's historical strengths, and think about what happens when things get hot, where will the water come from, etc. All those basic things. And you think about it as a community, then it's a better chance. And this is not a good outcome, I know. And so, again, I apologise for being a sort of bearer of grim news, but it's hard for me anyway to think that anything else is really possible.
Do you think that a further reduction in the use of fossil fuels, as in us moving more to electric vehicles, have a great impact?
Yeah, and all those things are important, right? They're all important. And they're important because they will stop it getting even worse, right? As there's more more greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, it gets hotter and hotter. It doesn't stop. It just keeps getting hotter. And only if you stop the gas, then not now, but maybe 100 years from now, it'll start to stop getting so hot. The more you stop, see, it's already 1 degree. And I know 1 degree doesn't sound like much, but you think about it. All those mega hurricanes, the fires, the floods, etc., that we're talking about, that all those things are happening with 1 degree, and the prediction is that it'll be 2 or 3 degrees by the end of the century, and it'll just be much, much worse. So the more you can stop the gas in the atmosphere, the renewables, and many other things, then it's bad now. It's going to get worse, but it could get even worse. It could be extinction. It could mean, even humans will no longer live. I mean, if they don't stop, the greenhouse will just build up, and the heat will build up and build up. So it is very important to do that, and so it's very important to agitate. It's very important for grassroots activism, to plant forests, etc. All those things are very important because it's not, you won't stop it, but it won't get as bad as it would get if you didn't do that. You and of course millions of other people.
Yes.
So, yes. Yep.
Yeah. Just you were speaking about the tropical countries, like islands like the Caribbean islands, and you have many places that are coastal lands.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to talk about, the whole importance of blue carbon ecosystems.
Well, anything that cuts greenhouse gases, is good, right? And especially if it can, it means, like with my understanding of blue carbon is that it can, it's a good source of many different things, But remember, the heating that I'm talking about is already built in. That heating will not stop. Getting 2 or 3 degrees hotter by the end of this century is going to be is very likely. It's that's what the scientists have been refining their work for many years, and so you've got to take that into account, that everything is going to be done in a much hotter place, and so even though things might work at current heat range, but it's going to get hotter, and so you have to think about how will they work even hotter? And that's what I mean. But the best engineers and scientists are doing exactly that, because I mean it's a necessity. I'm not really an expert. I've read a few things, and so. Obviously, if you live on an island and with a lot of coast, it'll be cooler than if you live in the middle of a continent, like a big continent like Australia or the US or something. But remember, everything will be hotter, and the sea level will be higher. The sea level rises slowly. It is speeding up, but it's already affecting. I had a look at some. There was some stuff on a Jamaican story where there was some flooding, some coastal flooding that never used to happen before, and it's just a sign that they're all even in places that seem better to live now. You still have to take account of these new situation, new climate situation.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, because I was reading, and I want to ask you if this is true, that we are losing like about 800,000 hectares of, the coastal mangrove lands. Is this true?
Well, I know it's true in Australia. I don't know. I'd be very surprised if it's not true. I don't know the number. I know there was in North Australia is tropical, right? And they had huge mangrove. It's a big country, and there was huge mangrove, but they had a huge mangrove die-off, first time ever. Hundreds of kilometres of mangrove died, and so I'm sure it happens other places too, and it's to do with, each locality has its own reasons, right? Heat is one major thing, but there's other things too, to do with chemicals in the sea and various other things. So just because it's happening in like Australia, it doesn't guarantee it's going to happen elsewhere, but I'm pretty sure it will. It might even be worse. And mangroves, mangroves is an ecosystem. That's where all the baby fish live and grow and feed, etc. So death of the mangrove means death of an ecosystem, and that means food supplies down the coast are affected, and many other things are connected, and so it's it's a cascade of bad effects, like I say, build community, try and find out as much as you can about your locality, what are the special issues. Maybe there are pluses. The extra carbon dioxide usually means that plants grow quicker. And so there might be a plus. Those forests might grow 20% quicker than they used to. Things like that. There might be some pluses. But it's really the heat is it's going to be the hardest thing to change.
So we might end up living in a dome, like Total Recall.
Well, yes, I'm sure there are people thinking about that, domes in Antarctica. That's the way.
Wow, that's some serious thing.
I know it's very hard to think these things through. And I know lots of people don't want to think this. It's too bad. It's just too unmitigating disaster. And let's just party.
So, Sam, before we leave, what suggestion would you leave with our viewers this morning? What can you tell them?
Well, I've said it a few times. Build community. Try. I don't mean become survivalist. The expression. There are people that, for other reasons, not for climate reasons. The climate reasons are good reasons to do this, but they are survivalists for religious reasons or some other reason. But they will, a bit like your idea of a dome, but you've got to, prepare for this, and that means, find out what the scientists are saying, and just remember it's all got to be done locally. I've been talking about global things again, but some things locally will be worse, and some things they'll be better. And that's my best suggestion is prepare for collapse.
Wow.
And it's a mental preparation too. You have the resilience. What does resilience mean in your community? And relinquish. What are you prepared to give up? What are things that are not quite as important as other things? And restoration. What are the things that you absolutely need? You have to make these, and you need to do it in a community. By the way, I can send you written stuff about all this if anyone's interested. Happy to, but it just puts into words what I'm saying. there is a sort of what can you say? There's a mental health issue here. You know, if you think there's no future, and this is especially for young people, if there's no future, well, why study hard? Why work hard? You know, and that's terrible. And you have to find a way of keeping things going, even you know, and still being true and honest to what's happening.
All right, Sam. Thank you very much, Sam, for taking time out of your busy, or we call it party morning, 'cause, it's your sleeping time, and for spending some time with us this morning. So I'm just going to ask Courtney to do the summary for us this morning, please. Thank you.
Okay. Well, today, I just want to thank our guest again, Sam, to speak on climate change. We know, the importance of climate change and how it affects the world today. And in our little neck of the woods in Jamaica, we have to look at it seriously because, deforestation, as we know, is like one of the main problems for climate change, that create these greenhouse gases. So, one of the things that we could do in offering solutions, as Flavors had mentioned too, is, planting trees. And we remember that a prime minister in Jamaica once, brought out that program, but it was ignored. And, looking to, about like the Caribbean islands, that they are coastal areas. So what can be done? Well, keep the beaches clean, don't, throw plastics around because this, really affect the atmosphere, affect the fish in the sea and, marine life on a whole. So, those are the things that we should look at, and I would encourage like the people in the Caribbean to go to the various departments of government that may involve, climate change, that they can effectively get policy change in this direction to protect, the environment. Flavors also mentioned and talk about like, the cars, electric cars, the way of like, stopping the emission or pollution, in the atmosphere to create these greenhouse gases and all of that. So that's the next thing. And, we look, we can further look to just, although we didn't speak about it, about nuclear and solar and wind energy as a source.
That's one of the pluses. I'm sure the Caribbean has got a lot of sun, and sun is free. And so solar is very cheap. And so one doesn't need fossil fuels really. And that would make a big difference. And can I just say one last thing? It's something I haven't talked much about Indigenous stuff here yet, but one of the things I've learned from Indigenous people here is to be a good ancestor. I've said it a couple of times, particularly the young people are going to be living in this world a lot longer than me personally, and so I'm doing my best to be as good an ancestor as I possibly can, and to my mind that means talking about some of these things.
Okay, and I'll just go, continue to just say that, we in the Caribbean, we must remember that too, that we are going to be like the most vulnerable people, with climate change will affect. So, we should take this seriously. Just don't look at it, oh, this is just a talk and, people trying to be political or anything. Climate change, like COVID, is real. And, there must be, as Sam spoke about, activism, we have to get active and proactive about this situation, because, sooner or later, there'll be no one, left. Nature will just actually take back its course, and, because people don't realize that we cannot kill nature. The human population will die out and leave nature all by itself. So, just to encourage each other, that, we can play our part, by doing the things that are necessary. And just to remember too that the warmer the climate gets, is the more disease-prone people will get.
Very true. Yeah, and it's another bad thing. Yeah.
Because we'll have situation with drought, water shortage, and water is one of the greatest sustainer of life. So, when these things happen, we'll see, the kind of, the domino effect of these problems. So back to you, Franco.
Yes. So let us play our part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race. So for all of you this morning, you heard Sam from Australia this morning, up past his bedtime. Take some time out just to remind us.
Almost waking time.
Just to remind us that the earth is ours, so we have to protect it because this is where we live. 2030 is just around the corner. Don't want to get any hotter. But in the meantime, let us do our part. So please remember to subscribe, like, and share the video. And the object of this channel is to educate you and entertain you. The Real Stuff Podcast is your Caribbean podcast. Remember that. And live and love every moment of your life. Be grateful for each new day. Cherish your family and friends. Bless others. Keep the faith. Never lose hope. And remember, prayer changes things. Regardless of what religion you belong to, you must pray and continue to pray. So on behalf of my podcasting team, Courtney, Flavius, Maxwanette, and Francine, and myself, have a joyful morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on your time zone. And so I'm going to ask Queen Lubafu to say the Our Father in the language of the Garifuna, and then Tafina would take with myself to take us out of here. So Sam, thank you again, Sam. And thank all of you, my viewers, this morning for watching. All right, one love.
You lead us to full. You belong far away away. Aduguala lebo buseru. Lida mua, lida sungfula. Lida mua, lida sungfula.
Well, unfortunately, this is it. Till next time. Bless.
All you gotta do is just speak. One word is
well, unfortunately, this is it. Till next time. Bless.
I forget what I was trying to say. I no longer do what I was gonna do, but you're no good for me. That's why me know send me if it could flee. Me I fi take away me say. Me I fi take away me say. Me I fi hide like a thief in the night. Me I fi get out of sight. Me I fi take away me say. I fi take away me say. I fi utilize I wings. Surely I leave where I ease.
Well, unfortunately, this is it. Till next time. Bless.
I find you very hard to resist, but this relationship I'm gonna